It is.
It's a business spotlight, y'all. It's a business spotlight.
Do you know Tamisha?
Sure.
Have you met Tamisha yet?
How you doing? How you doing, Tamisha Thomas? Nice to meet you. No problem, no problem. Your makeup is beautiful. You must be doing some fashion something. Got to be. She got to be doing some fashion something. Not quite. Okay.
Not quite.
People look pretty.
Okay, so have a seat. Have a seat. Now give us your background.
My name is Tiffany Peterson Felder. I'm originally from Michigan, but I've actually lived in North Carolina most of my adult life, so I call myself a Mission North Carolinian, and I live in Virginia now. So I drove down today because
My bad.
friends with some of the organizers. I know Eric Bennett. We've been friends for years in entrepreneurship, but I've actually been licensed in insurance for 25 years and been in the industry about 26 years.
Okay, so insurance, you make sure that we insure it before we go out and live building wealth for our families.
Absolutely, building generational wealth, not just for us now while we're living, but ongoing. But I feel like now in my career that it was time to talk about the transition, because my business name is Role Model Agency Financial Group, and we always get people calling about, are you looking for models? Or do you have would you like to be in this fashion show? And I used to model part-time, but when I started having children, some of that changed. Now I'm married and we have 10 children collectively, 5 girls, 5 boys, so time to model.
That's a Brady Bunch. Oh, Lord.
Brady Bunch plus 2, right?
Yeah.
But what I really have actually really honed into lately is being able to talk to people about looking good, feeling good, and also having your finances do the same thing. Because I feel like people that have money just smile more. They feel better. They usually can look better. They can take better care of their health because they have the finances to do so. So that's really our objective, is to be able to teach people how to do that. And one of our latest initiatives is, it's actually called Our Request. And what it is we think about the end in mind. So when we do financial planning, we're like, okay, let's take care of the end.
Final expenses.
But a lot of people won't do it because they say it costs too much, I'm not healthy enough, I don't have time to, or my kid's gonna take care of it for me, and all these excuses we get in our community. So what we've done is we created a membership where we just need one responsible person, one, to make the decision for 5 other people or 2 animals. So you can cover 5 people, 4 humans, or 2 pets.
And animals too?
Animals too.
Wow.
Dogs and cats.
What?
It's called, and you can look it up.
A family plan plus the dog.
And the cat.
And the cat. Okay.
5 funerals for 55.com. It's only $55.
Okay. Oh, you don't have no excuses.
None. We try to eliminate excuses.
Okay, give it to him again.
It's 5 funerals for 55.com.
Okay.
And when you go there, you can choose if you want to be cremated, you choose the $55 version. If you want to have it at your church plus a cremation, $85 version. If you want to have a burial, it's a little bit more because you got to cover the casket and the vault and all the things that you got to have. So that's $125. But still, for 5 individuals,
that's pretty good.
Can't get much better.
No, you can't. So how long is the plan? That's a life plan for the rest of your life?
For the rest of your life, and generational, because we keep up with inflation. So you could keep the plan in the family, like a trust.
After you die.
That you pass it on to the next person.
Oh, okay, well, she got it, y'all. Give them the website again.
5 funerals for 55.com.
5 funerals for 55.com. That means we don't want you to go GoFundMe when somebody go die. She's taking care of this for you. This is 5 funerals for
55.com.
5 funerals for
55.com.
Oh, I need to remix. 5 funerals for
55.com.
Thank you. Give a round of applause, everybody. Woo! Look, y'all. I'm gonna need everybody to get on social media and tell your friends to come on out. We're gonna bring our next person to the stage. Come on up. My host's gonna introduce us. Come on.
I paused it.
Paused it? Okay.
Yeah.
Say your name again for me.
All right. So. All right, so So, next to the stage, we're going to keep this thing going. We got Mr. Evans in the building. I got some Evans in my family, brother. From around here?
No.
Okay. You know, we always got to see if we're family first when we hear them last names. But round of applause, man. Put your hands together for Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans, one time for Mr. Evans. What do you do, brother?
I'm a consultant, diversity consultant.
Y'all, we're very informal today. This is practice. This is practice because we're gonna create a group of people that are ready to be able to move. I'm telling you, they're about to close these schools. We're gonna be talking about that more tonight. I want to mention it every time I take the mic, though. Recently, the governor issued a state of emergency where he actually bring the music down. The governor issued a state of emergency where he spoke about schools being cut this legislative session. So if you get a chance, I want you to Google it. The plan is to be able to, it's really an attack on public schools. And so we are holding this event today so that we get a better perspective of what's going on in our community, and we find the people that can help us be able to plan for a better future for our kids. So without further ado, let me introduce yourself, sir.
Dr. Dov Evans.
Dr. Dov Evans. Dr. Dov Evans, can you tell me more about professionally, what do you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yep, so I'm a DEI consultant, so I help companies, profits, nonprofits, and of course educational institutions to kind of open their arms and open their minds to how to treat their employees as well as their constituents in a very fair and equitable way. So diversity, of course.
Diversity, equity, inclusion. And so the landscape of what you do is to be able to make things comfortable for everybody.
Fair and equitable, absolutely.
Can you tell me equitable? What does that mean in your field?
That means realizing that some people have an unfair advantage and doing what is necessary to make sure that they're able to catch up, which is different from equality, right? So equality is making sure you give everybody the same. You get two, I get two. But if you realize someone else started at a deficit, they started with negative, then you give them a little extra to catch up. But you first have to realize and be able to compensate for that deficit.
How does that play out in the area that we're in? Can you tell us more about, I always say that this area is the Silicon Valley of the East, and sometimes people don't know what landscape we're in. Can you talk more about the corporate space in this Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area, and more about the landscape of it with the institutions that's here, higher learning that's here? Can you paint a picture for our audience about the Silicon Valley of the East and some of the physical assets in this area that make us so great?
I think one of the things that we see here is a lot of innovation going on in the area. I see it or saw it when I was in Durham for a good amount of time with how there's a lot of innovation going on in that space in the downtown Durham area. And if we're talking about how that relates to equity and not everybody having access to some of those opportunities going on, and like in the Silicon Valley of the East, if you will, is when they come up with certain job descriptions and things of that nature, they're not really speaking to other people, their education, their background, their experience, so it's thereby being exclusionary in their practices and not even really knowing it. So then you have people like myself, other advocates in that diversity space who work with organizations to say the way you're writing your positions and the way you're actually asking for certain things with their degrees and their experience, so on and so forth, is actually excluding a lot of talent that's right there in the community. So being able to, again, recognize that that some people are starting at a deficit through no fault of their own, that allows you to hopefully compensate for that, not because they're less than, obviously, but because they were just simply given less than. And of course, you can get to why and all that good stuff. And then once they're able to kind of recognize that deficit, make sure that everyone's on equal footing, then they're able to compete for some of these jobs, some of these innovative jobs that give them upward mobility. And once they're able to get these jobs, it gives them more money. It helps them obviously with their businesses. It helps them with the schools they have access to for their kids, for their family. It also helps them out with housing, so on and so forth. So there's so many different benefits that come from just simply giving people who don't normally have access to some of these institutions access. And that all starts with like that wording, because we all know words matter. The way you write these job descriptions, the way you go look for talent, it matters. So.
Okay, so we talked about equity. We talked about it in the corporate space. So what are some of the things that you're seeing being done in these corporate environments to level the playing field? And is it a difficult process to get people to recognize that? Can you tell me some of the things that you've seen corporations do?
Yep. So, for example, there's one corporation, a nonprofit in particular I'm working with, and they're actually going back and revising the way they have written their positions forever, for 20, 30 years. But since it's a nonprofit, there's a board that comes with that. So it really starts with working with that board and convincing them why it's worth it to actually make some of these changes. So you have to show them some of the talent that they're missing out on, and that's one of the biggest pieces. If you tell people to do any type of change, enact any type of change, you're going to be resistant. We all are. So you first have to help them understand what the benefit is. Why would you want to do this? Show them the talent that they're missing. So you show how, for example, it's a very small example, how some of the talent that's coming out of HBCUs and what they go on to do in other institutions, so you're missing that talent. The way you write your positions, you're missing these people. So you have access to this vast wealth of knowledge and talent if we can rewrite and be a little more open and inclusive with the way we write these positions for people that go to NCCU or Shaw, St. Aug, so on and so forth. They're going other places. You want them to come here, rethink the way that you actually write your positions. And not only that, you have to rethink your culture. Once they do get in, is your culture really set up to make them feel accommodating so they can flourish? Because you also see a mass exodus of, if we're talking about black and brown people, who leave these organizations because we realize it's not for us. So yes, you rewrite it to get us in the door, but then also start to shift your culture so we can then stay and thrive. And that's where you see the benefit. Then lastly, I can go on and on. But then you show them statistics on other larger organizations have already done this and show them how they've been able to propel themselves because they had, they made themselves available to all of these other, black and brown people, all this talent, and show them how it was able to kind of get them over the hump. Because you have that diversity in terms of the people, you have diversity in thought. And if you have diversity in thought, you have diversity in innovation. If you're talking about true innovation.
Mic check.
Okay, and then from there, you're able to kind of move forward with, with your policies, with your innovation, with your bottom line, and strengthening your company. But again, you first have to talk to, if you're working with a nonprofit, that board, and convince them why. Why are we going to do this change? Why is it worth it to go back and rewrite policies and rewrite job descriptions? We've been doing it the same way for 20, 30 years. It's always worked, so on and so forth. So you show them the data, the empirical data, the quantitative and qualitative data to show them how you can certainly do things differently, not only for the benefit of the people, but for the benefit of the organization. Everybody can win if you open your mind.
Mic check. Okay, so we talked about corporate, and we talked about being able to bring in the equity, and how we do that is rewrite the positions, we change the culture, we show the empirical data. That is at the corporate. Now you're also listed to talk about, so that's community, that's corporate, that's business. We also want to bring this because it is Juneteenth. So not only are we looking at the corporate space in which we're in, we're also looking at the family space in which you're in. And so we're bringing this back into family, because I do believe that if you don't have a strong family, you can't have a strong community. So you're also listed here today to talk about the importance of co-parenting. So can you tell me?
Mic check. You want mine?
So can you tell me a little bit more about before, because as a visionary to the TMT Youth Community Foundation, I know you can't have a strong community without having a strong family. And so can you tell me the importance of, nowadays we have blended families, we got single moms, we got single dads, can you tell me the importance of co-parenting in the landscape of gentrification, landscape of a changing economy? We've got the 5th Industrial Revolution coming. Can you tell us about how co-parenting works when we're looking in when we bring this back to us as far as family?
So if we think about how businesses are able to adjust themselves to, like you said, gentrification and a change economy, change in leadership, change in politics, they do some of the best organizations do a job of adjusting to all these different factors, right? They take into account, the way they run their business, because at the end of the day, it's a group of people. How do we get this group of people to still be productive and adjust to all these external factors in our environment? So a family should be no different, right? There's always going to be that business element. The minute you say I do and get married, that legally binding agreement, whether you have kids or not, then you essentially kind of started, in some sense, a business, right? There's more to it, but there's certainly a segment of this business. So now let's add kids into the factor. And now you're going to see some of the same deal where you have a group of people that have to now change and adapt to their external factor. Well, what do we do when schools change for our kids? What do we do when the price of living goes up? What do we do if someone loses their job? You have a loss of income. We still have to adapt. So when we talk about co-parenting, and let's say the mother and the father split, but you still are co-parenting with children, now you have to be very diligent to still take into account these external factors and how they affect your family. But now you have the other person you're doing business with is somewhere else, right? They're in another household making their own decisions. So you have to be just as diligent to make sure you're taking all these things into account when it comes to the way you handle your money, the way you communicate. And some of us don't necessarily make that correlation between some of the things we make sure we do in business and some of the very conscious ways we do this in the family. So I would say anybody out there that's a business owner, they certainly make sure that they go out of their way to make sure they keep track of the books. They make sure they communicate a certain way. They make sure that they keep their eye on the competition, so on and so forth. Do we do that as a family, right? Do you make sure you're always keeping track of, do our kids have everything they need? What changes do we need to make because of the way the school system is actually kind of evolving? When things change with politics and the way these different policies are enacted and are going to affect adversely or in a positive way our kids, are we making adjustments? Am I communicating this with the other parent, the other of the children to ensure that we're on the same page with that? You have to be just as diligent as you would in a business. You need to have weekly meetings where you talk about these things. And just like you would in business, you have to be able to parse out, how you feel about somebody, but still be able to have the very hard but yet very necessary conversations about how we're going to move forward, parenting kids for the betterment of them and putting yourself aside as a leader so you can do what's best for the kids.
Mic check. So we have today an idea of what diversity, equity, and inclusion looks like. We have an idea today of
Mic check. What co-parenting looks like. Do you have anything else to offer to the people today about some of the work that you do in your background?
Yeah, so again, when it comes to some of the work that I do with regards to diversity, working with different organizations and ensuring that, again, they understand the benefits, for parties with regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion, the differences between those different words. But one of the biggest things is, again, being able to help them adapt these different ideas in their personal life. It's really hard. It's really hard.
Mic check.
It's really hard to do some of these different things only in the professional realm and not in your personal life. So, we really have to get personal, when we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion. We really have to do some soul seeking, if you will. Really think about your past. How were you raised? Where does this come from? If you don't go to the source, then it's all going to be surface level and it's not going to stick. So some of the training we do, we really go back to how you were raised, things of that nature.
So you're helping us identify the trauma.
Absolutely.
Can't go nowhere traumatized.
Right. So we definitely want to talk about how you were raised, how that stuff permeates, the way you see people, how you do business, and then help them draw the correlation between what they saw growing up, in the formative years, and what they do today. Once they're able to draw those conclusions, then
they can stop the behaviors and move forward.
They have a chance to be able to stop the behaviors. Absolutely, there's a chance now.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, how can we get the TMT Youth Community Foundation lined up so that you can present us to corporations? We have some mentees coming from Shaw University. We've got the cyber bears that are working with the robot. Where's the robot? The robot should be running around. Where the robot at? But we've got young people, and our goal is to be able to strengthen the pipeline, because as we know, y'all, the schools need help in reaching our underserved communities. They need help. We've got the school to prison pipeline. We have 3 jails in Southeast Raleigh. Ms. Carmen Cawthon just talked about the displacement when you come through with the gentrification and highways and federal dollars and land is even given to some of the universities here. So there's a huge gap and the resources in our community. And our goal is to be able to bring the resources so that these kids can have exposure to some of the things that's offered in the Silicon Valley of the East. So I want you to answer this today, but I want you to think about our organization, the TMT Youth Community Foundation, and how maybe you may strengthen us to be able to present us to and the youth in our organization as a pipeline to these corporations. Schneider Electric is one of the companies that works with our cyber bears to help provide. They actually provide employees to come out to the cyber bears, and they actually provide help in mechanical and coding. And so we are always looking for more companies to do that. Okay. So are there anything else you'd like to say before you leave the stage today?
No, that's about it. I really, again, I really appreciate, your efforts. Again, you kind of told me a little bit about what you all are doing here, and I always love when you have community-based efforts to be able to galvanize people, help them, help educate them so they know what's going on. That gives you a fighting chance to kind of shape, your environment the way you see it. So.
We want to thank you for coming out. Let's give them a round of applause, y'all. Woo! All right. Well, thank you.
All right, so this is a part I've been waiting for right here. We have a few brothers that have come out to have an open discussion with us, and I'm about to bring these brothers to the stage. Y'all can come on up, and I'll run it through one by one. You sitting in with us? You know, I ain't gonna forget about you. All right.
Wait, put it back.
Nah, we got a different setup for this right here. We got a different setup. Yeah, pick a side, however y'all, and you can let me know what we need to do for once everybody get on the stage. You just. Would you want to come up, brother, Mr. Warren? You can sit in. Just okay. All right, I'm gonna check. I'm gonna check on you now. Mr. Eric, you want to sit in? Okay, all right. I'm gonna check with you. Okay, so we're gonna. Am I good? So while we sitting here, fellas, I can give y'all just a little bit about me real quick. So I'm from the area, 42. I go by BLESS, stands for Believe, Life, Everything Sacred. And even with most of my big dreams, I've always wanted to stay connected to my community. I always wanted to make sure my neighborhood was good and surrounding neighborhoods. So even though I was young and came up in the era where we was dividing the neighborhoods up, right after y'all, I'm presuming pretty much, I'm 42, but we kind of, so I still had a love for it. It don't matter if that brother ain't from my neighborhood, if he's still on the south side, you know what I'm saying? So I have been always active, but these last couple of years I participated in a fatherhood conference, so I'm there, I'm in the seminars, really nice hotels, usually a week at a time. I've been to 2 so far, and I'm gonna introduce y'all when I leave. I'm gonna want to connect y'all to this conference because the guy who's in charge of the South Carolina chapter gave me a chance to I talked to him after the last conference, and he said, man, if you're good at putting stuff together, go ahead and put together what you see. So I'll be sending y'all something after this, but so I called to Tamisha when she's like, let's put this together. I said, we got to include something fatherly, which where the legacy came from. Miss Muna's like, it's legacy, you know what I'm saying? But I definitely wanted to start something because the one group that I didn't see at the conference was basically 16, because we was talking fathers. So in my mind, I didn't see that 16 to 25, and we know younger people 30 is old. You know what I'm saying? So I try to tell them like basically 25. So they didn't have that group at all. They did have a good group of men, I thought. You know what I'm saying? But in my mind, and I'm gonna end on this. In my mind, I just wanted to do an initiative that would help get people to the conference because I thought it was a pretty good conference. it don't mean that the group that helps me do this don't mean we probably wouldn't come up with something different, but we definitely have Head Start and this guy named Mr. Thompson, who is like, man, if you can get fathers together and brothers together, pull them together and let's start working together. So that's one thing that I want to include with this Juneteenth program, is that every year from now we have something carved out that the fathers can see was specifically for them. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna let these guys introduce themselves. I'm gonna grab another mic, but I'm gonna pass this one around first on introductions. I'm gonna start from this way. Here you go, my brother.
My name is Ernest Johnson Jr. I'm from Durham, North Carolina, and I was invited by Muna. I've known Muna for about 22 years. Actually, my youngest son is 22 years old, and she started my locks during that time, so that's how I keep up with the time that I've known her. So she actually has watched my children grow up, and has gotten to see me father my children and to guide them. So I will say more, but I'm going to pass this on and let him introduce himself.
My name is Leon Belcher, and I'm from Durham, North Carolina, and I came here in the 90s. That's where I met this gentleman, Ernest Johnson Jr. We've been knowing each other about 33 years. I'm my father, and fatherhood is something else.
And real quick to y'all brothers too. So one thing I learned in the conference, of course, you know, we don't powwow and with amongst us as we should. But one thing you said was, this man said, man, that's my best friend right there. That's my best, and that stood out to me, man. Well, for me, because I'm not as cool with my best friend as I thought I was gonna be. We you know, in my mind it's like, man, we ain't gonna never separate. So when I heard you say that, that stuck out. You know, I promote it. I'm proud of it. So I just want to let you know I was that stuck out. I said that's my best dog right there. You know what I'm saying? So that's what's up, man. You know what I'm saying?
All right. Good afternoon. All right. Is Sister Muna around?
She got it. She ain't touched down yet.
Okay. She hasn't touched down, but if everyone could give her a round of applause. Yeah. Sister Muna reached out to me. My name is Cimarron Reed Bandele. I am based in Durham. I'm originally from Hartford, Connecticut, so I'm a transplant, a first-generation born Northerner. My parents are from the South. My mother's from Low Country, from South Carolina. My father was from Scotland Neck, North Carolina. So I am a part of community, and I've been a part of the community for quite some time here in the Raleigh-Durham area.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Andre Mim. I'm a minister of reconciliation, reconciling people back to Yahushua, who a lot of people call Jesus. But what validates, substantiates me, I have traveled, and I said before, I have worked in law enforcement 28 and a half years. I'm a retiree. And what I want to do, and I think, brother, this is a networking we're doing here. We need good fathers. Like our Father was in heaven, he was a good father, and he wants us to be good fathers. And how do we become good fathers? We have to know the truth. Not just walking in lies and having all these programs and not knowing who we are and whose we are. So what I did, I had the opportunity to travel, to turn down these walls of division. And when I say walls of division, lies, deceptions, and altering, plagiarizing, and I have to do the dirty work, but a lot of things have been done. So that's what I'm here today to. I'm an advocate of truth. I want truth to be taught to everyone. I'm tired of the Santa Clauses, the Easter bunnies, all these traditions that have made the word of Elohim non-effect. So that's what I'm here today for, is to set the captive free and be a great father as you're advocating for today.
Okay, so before I show like for me, this is the first one I ever played, you know what I'm saying? But is it a topic? No, I ain't ready yet. Is it a topic? All right, so what we'll do is we'll start with my brother right here. We'll start with community awareness. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let you run with it, and then we'll, piggyback off of what he's saying. So she did the same for you, right? It's kind of all right. So here we go, brother.
Good afternoon again. For those of you who are in the audience, if you could repeat after me, I am here.
I am here
because someone paved the way.
because someone paved the way.
I am here.
I am here
because someone paved the way.
because someone paved the way.
Turn to your neighbor and tell your neighbor, I am here
I am here
because someone paved the way.
because someone paved the way.
I know that this is Juneteenth, and I was asked to speak on community awareness and politics, and I know that this is in reference also to fatherhood. And I think that those who are present today that's on this panel, I appreciate these brothers because the fact that they are fathers, and for those who are not fathers, you still have a responsibility. The word responsibility means the ability to respond. So we want to make certain that as we try to have some type of influence or impact on the young people who are coming up today, that they are able to see prime models of manhood. Just a quick story, because Sister Muna, Mama Muna, said to me to just go from my heart. So last Saturday, we had an event. We had a Juneteenth celebration. We had the Buffalo Soldiers, Tuskegee Airmen, 54th Massachusetts Regiment, 35th U.S. Colored Troops, all represented under one roof. And it was a great event. I was happy when it was over. The following day, which was that Sunday, I happened to be laying across my bed. My cell phone went off. Saw a number that I didn't recognize. I thought it was a spam call, scam likely call. Then behind the telephone call, there was a text message. And it said, "Hey, Mr. C, this is Jamari." Then he called back. I said, man, this is my day where I can rest before I have to go back to work the next day. I answered the call. And as I answered the call, he told me that he was in distress. He was with his girlfriend, and that he and his girlfriend didn't have anywhere to stay, and that they were trying to get to Florida so he could be with his mother. He just needed a few extra dollars so that he could get on the Greyhound bus. I said, okay, well, give me 5 minutes and I'll call you back. I spoke with my wife, and so I said, I want to go ahead and give him this money so that way he can go ahead and get on the bus and get on down to Florida. Long story short, I said, let me go see the young man, and I know that he needs a ride to the Greyhound bus station. We get down to the Greyhound bus station, and I'm trying to cut this story short because I want to give time for all of the other brothers and sisters to be able to speak. So we get down to the Greyhound. Greyhound is a little bit different now. They give you a little slip where you need to make a phone call. Didn't make the phone call, got on my phone, tried to go ahead and get the ticket so that he could keep the money that he had. Credit card got blocked because I thought the number or the code was going to go to his phone, but it was supposed to come to mine, so of course they stopped it as being fraudulent. I said, well, let's do this. I said, well, let me take that back. My wife said, let's do this. She said, let him stay the night and we'll put him on the bus tomorrow. I said, that'll be fine. The next day came, and his mother would not allow him or his girlfriend and newborn child, 4 weeks old, to come down. And it boiled down to who was staying with her and who was paying her bills. His father wouldn't allow him to stay with him because he was staying with his girlfriend, and the girlfriend didn't quite necessarily want to bring on others into her household. I picked him up from his grandmother, and his grandmother told him before he could get comfortable, he couldn't stay there because she had too many people in her house, and she was about to leave and go back to Detroit, Michigan. Long story short, these young people had absolutely nowhere to go. We noticed that the baby was crying, and my mother, who's an amputee, my aunt, who has dementia, stay with me periodically. I'm at work, I get a phone call, and my mother says, she calls me Simi. She says, Simi, this baby got to go to the doctor. I said, well, what's wrong? She said, this diaper rash is starting to bleed. I said, well, have the young lady take a picture of the rash and have her send it to me. Saw the rash, I almost cried. I told my supervisor, I said, listen, I can't be here right now. I have something that I have to do. We took the child to urgent care. After going to urgent care, they said the baby had a temperature of 102, needed to go over to the ER. We went to the emergency room where the baby was being taken care of. Come to find out, the baby had, what do you call it? A urinary tract infection, a UTI. The rash that he had, he wound up having foot and mouth disease. And there was one other thing that he was dealing with as well. So of course, I have to step in now as what? The father. So I found that this was ideal that I would be here today as a father, speaking about fatherhood and community development and asset building, because sometimes we have to be surrogates to our young people who have blood ties, but not true family ties. And so these young people are now learning the difference between relatives and family. These people who turn their backs on them are related to them, but now they have to be among family. I spoke to other people who are in our community, and interestingly enough, what do you think most said to me when I told them that I have this young man and his girlfriend at my house with a newborn child? Not your responsibility. Hey man, somebody need to come get that baby. Well, the baby already been got. The baby's in my house, under my roof, being taken care of. So, I tell that story today simply because of the fact that we don't want to go beyond certain areas in our scope of thought and how we think when we have certain issues that present itself in front of us today. As I said to you all earlier, the reason why I said I am here because someone else paved the way is simply because of the fact that we're not just here on a whim. 186 plus, and I say plus because there were also black women involved in the Civil War that were fighting for our freedom. Many of these men and women were illiterate, had no masters, had no doctorate, had no high school diploma, and they did everything within their power to make certain that we are here today. So whatever it is that we think that we know, we only know because of them. And with that said, I thank you all for inviting me out this afternoon, and I pray that we can have a beautiful panel discussion.
Well, I guess I'll lead off of that, which is really important.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yes.
Each one of y'all speak on the main thing.
So I was asked to talk about legacy, leaving legacy. Most of the time when someone says, well, what's your legacy? Or if you're going to leave one, we're thinking... Most of the time, I got it. I'm a little closer. We're thinking legacy is just leaving financial wealth or leaving something behind, but not realizing that it entails a whole lot more than just what you leave financially. Sometimes it's what you leave spiritually, and then many times it's what you leave about who you are. And our whole life experiences are our legacy. But they don't begin with our lives when we are born. They begin with our ancestors, as you were saying. They start with our ancestors and those who are around us. And so I was asked to talk about my legacy as far as being a father. Now, I am 67 years old, and I was born in a time when the cornfield was no further away than the edge of the stage. And my memories of looking back in my home, my father, he was around, but he wasn't around. In other words, he was around enough that I knew when he was around the quality of it. But when I look back into the house that we lived in, being in front of that cornfield, we had chickens running around in the yard. I could never see beyond the door looking into the house. And my memory is just dark and of staying. But it was in a rural area in Virginia. I was born in Portsmouth, Virginia. And my mother was a young mother. When she met my father, she already had 7 children. And then from my father, she had 5. So she ended up with 12 that I know of, and she said she had 22. But like me, my mother was a Virgo, but my mother was a very spiritual person and very well in tune with the land. She was also a healer and extremely gifted. And recognizing that one of the things that she taught me is about family. And I see those traits when they come back up. Now I have 6 children. Not all by the same mother, but I've made sure that my relationship with my children stay tight. All of my children know each other. They treat each other as if they come from the same mother. All of my children. Their ages start from 50 years old, and my youngest is 16. They are well educated. I wanted to bring my son with me and my grandson, my oldest son. So my oldest daughter, she does hair. She's worked with a lot of the national chains of doing hair. My second oldest daughter, she works for one of the financial institutions here in the Raleigh area. She has her master's degree, and she graduated from North Carolina Central. My oldest son, he's the lead journalist for ESPN. He graduated from A&T. My next oldest son, he's just turned 30 the other day. He's not my biological son, but he is my son. That, with him, is one of the key things I learned from my mother. My mother always took people in. She took them in, didn't matter who they were. And then when my father had children prior, she invited them into the family. And they taught us what family was all about. And family does not always have to do, as you said, with blood. So James has 2 children. And when his first child was born, he called me. He says, "Pops, I was calling you first because I want you to know that you're going to be a grandfather." And he told me some years ago, he came up to me to let me know. He said, "You know what? I really appreciate you." His father has been out of his life since he was about 3 years old. And when I was separated, I was picking up my kids. I made an effort to drive from Durham all the way to Fayetteville to pick my kids up all the time. And I would spend time with them at school because I knew that was important. I didn't tell you that I'm a registered nurse. So I was a registered nurse for 36 years, able to have a schedule that allowed me to see them. But I remember a call one time when he was about 3 years old. I went to pick my son and my daughter up. And his mama had him in his arms, and he had these big tears coming down his face. And I'm emotional too, so it's very important to me about how you treat people. And God spoke to me. He said, you need to ask if you can take him with you. And I asked his mom, and she said, yeah. He said, because he didn't ask to come here. He wants to go. He wants to be a part and he doesn't understand. And you have to show him love and consider him as yours. And I raised him as mine. And he told me years ago, he said, you brought me my first bicycle, my second bicycle. You took it every time we went to New York, you brought me with you. You took me with you. You gave me your last name. And I really appreciate what you've done. And so my relationship with him is just as strong as my relationship with my friend here, who is like stronger than my brother, which is something that my dad taught me also. But on with my legacy, I know I want to give everyone else a chance to speak, but the legacy, going back to my youngest son, he's 22, and Jordan travels all over the world by himself. He just got back from the Dominican Republic. He's a photographer, cinematographer. He does really well. He's doing way better than I could ever do. And he's probably been to more countries than I've ever been to. But he watches me and he watches over me. He really tries to stick with me and make sure that I'm okay. My next is my youngest. I know people don't like to say who's a favorite child, because I see where that caused a lot of trouble with me and my mom, being the seventh child. And but my youngest, she will be 16 in July, and she is a brilliant young lady. Now I say she gets her smarts from her mom. But I see a lot of her gifts are those gifts from my mother. So when we talk about legacy, the legacy that I carry is that my mother and my father had given me to carry on. And as I said, where I grew up at, we moved from the country to the projects. From the projects to Brooklyn, New York. And that was supposed to be my path to prison. That was supposed to be my pathway there. But it was not written so. I spent my summers here in the South, and when I graduated from from high school, I came directly to North Carolina. Now, one of the things that I fought against was going to HBCU. My mother tried to get me to go to HBCU. I had a scholarship for Hofstra University in New York. And sometimes when you're not listening to what people are saying, you make choices. You think, it's like, it was Mark Twain who said that there was a young man who told his father, he said, when I was 17, you were the dumbest man, the least intelligent man I ever knew. He said, but now that I'm 21, you're brilliant. You've come a long ways in such a short time. A lot of times we think we know a whole lot when we're young. And I decided not to take a scholarship at Hofstra University because I didn't want anyone to know my business. So I decided to leave and go to a private school in North Carolina. Not only out-of-state student, but a private school. I had a little money, and it was gone in less than one semester. One semester. But all the kids that were around me were talking about HBCUs. I had no idea what Morgan State or any of those were. I heard them talking. So all my peers, they were prepared by the time I got to the 10th grade. But what I've learned is looking at my grandkids. They're 11, my two youngest grandsons, well, they're not the youngest, but they are 11 years old. They know what HBCU they want to go to. Not only one, they have they have choices. But I'm going to speak a little bit more. I don't want to hold a lot, but I wanted to say that as far as my legacy is concerned, I've been teaching my kids ever since they've been young. And legacy starts the day that they are born. You start teaching them. They know where my grandmother's grave sites are at, my uncle's grave sites. To this day, I know they know who their patriarch is. My father's younger sister is 94 years old. His youngest brother is 86 years old. I see them, I honor them. And I will tell you a little bit more once I pass this on about legacy.
Real quick, I want to introduce the doctor he just got here. Let him introduce himself real quick. They got a rotation, but I at least want you to let them know who you are.
Greetings, it's an honor to be here. I am Dr. K. Alanubia in Hotel Karahamzi. I am a father of 6. I have 10 grandchildren. I have 4 sons and 2 daughters. I have 6 granddaughters and 2 grandsons. The name of my company is Network Commerce Association. I've had the honor and the privilege to work on several occasions with TooMuchTV and TNT Youth Community Foundations. We started a campaign a couple of years ago called Buy, Fix Up, Rebuild the Block. My current goal is to become the first historically black college and university decacorn. A decacorn is a startup that has a valuation greater than $10 billion. And the way we're going to get to that number, I helped my first client to exceed $1 million in deposits in less than 4 years. And our goal on phase 1 is to help 2,000 companies net $500,000 a year. 2,000 times 500,000 equals $1 billion of revenue. And if you want to become a unicorn, then you do a $1 billion revenue startup. But if you want to become a decacorn, you want to become a 10 billion plus startup. We looked at Angie's List as a baseline because Angie's List sold for $500 million, $500,000. And if you've noticed here lately, it's gone from Angie's List now to Angie. And so finished the class at the Wharton School of Business on how to scale a billion-dollar unicorn. And what the professor told me is, you don't have a unicorn, you have a decacorn. So going back to my numbers as I close, our goal is to help 2,000 companies net $500,000 in revenue. I have helped my first client exceed $1 million in revenue. And you take 2,000 companies times $500,000, and you have $1 billion. And you have 50 states in the United States, and you do the same thing in each state, franchise style, then that represents $1 billion times 50 states is a $50 billion legacy that I look to leave not only to my children, but to the community. Because we must first realize that an ounce of gold or a ton of gold is still gold. And it takes a village to raise a child. I thank everybody. I'm also a Shaw Bear, graduate of Shaw University, and my postdoctorate experience is commerce intelligence. I've traveled all around the world, and my P&L experience exceeds 50 million. Thank you.
I'm looking at you to run the studio.
If I could, I just want to ask a question to the panel here. I would like to ask a question to the panel here. What could we do? I notice the subject is about fathers, and most of us are fathers or have father people in our community. What can we do as fathers to better our community and just leave this place and not just let it stop here? We need to go out and start doing something to affect. I know we have a lot of meetings, we do all this, but we don't do nothing to help our communities. What can we do as a panel here to be a father, not just to our children, but to others that do not have fathers?
So I'll jump in with a thought at least. So whenever people asking me, how do I let's how you get the people out to this, how you get the people out to that. So sometimes it can be crafted depending on what it is, but usually for me it's the same formula, and it's an old formula. You know, one thing we could do, I'm thinking, is, you know, nothing beats the cookout scenario of a summer per se, the family cookout. So I used to do these team parties, and when I started, all the people around in Raleigh was like, man, boy, don't do it. But of course, I'm from the neighborhood, and I always deal with the young people, so I ain't had no problem. So about 300-400 kids showing up every time. We didn't have too many altercations. But I knew I was going to get the kids because I was doing a team party. I knew I was going to get the kids because my little brother was real popular. But what the kids didn't know was once they got there, this was my little system. I only let them in about 15 at a time because I took them into a room first. And we sat in the room, and I had certain people from the community. I had an OG that wasn't a gang member no more. I had a court advocate because a lot of kids get in trouble and don't tell their parents. So I had a court advocate there. I had certain people there, so you had to sit at least 10 minutes or so. And I could have made it longer, but I only did 5 parties before I kind of stopped because it was overwhelming to try to put it all together. But you know, so one thing with the my thought of a cookout is a series. It could just be a series, but the cookout is the food. That's what's gonna bring everybody. But it ain't a cookout. It ain't the DJ ain't there to play no songs for you to. It's really so that once everybody sit down with their plate, you know, we hit them with the topic. So my one thought, as far as being able to connect with them, is basically the 52 fake out, man. Yeah, it's a basketball tournament, man. I had Nate McMillan show up, man. You thought you was getting ready to come play some basketball, but the truth of the matter, the same way they do it when a person does something when they trying to do something wrong, but even though we're doing something right, and get, you know, the drug dealer tell them, hey man, you want to make some money? Hey man, come take this pack, man. Hey man, we got you on the, you know, but really that drug dealer just needs another runner. You know what I'm saying? He might not care if that runner makes it. So the concept is, you know, one thought is, I got several things I think we could get people there for, but that ain't really the reason why we brought you here. So I don't know what we can play off of that, but that was my one thought, like, you know, we can pull anything to get them there that, you know, I'm good that they might like, but the truth is, this is what we, boom, like we immediately come around the corner like, they're like, you got us. Yeah, we got us. Sit down for a second. So that's my one thought is,
well, brother, in order to answer your question, the first thing we have to realize as a community, especially a community of men with respect to our women, is that your first inheritance is your name. Back in the day, when a father gave a child a name, the name represented a compass, so that the child was, if the father died at war or the mother died at childbirth, that the child could always reflect on their name and know where they were going. I think we have to go back and revisit the spirit of Sankofa and look at Sankofa, S-A-N-K-O-F-A. It's a picture of a bird that resembles a duck, and it's moving forward while looking backwards with the egg, which represents the youth, and the crest of its back. And I think when you tell a story, you have to tell it in 3 parts. You know, this is who we are and where we came from. This is where we are right now. But most importantly, given the grace of God, this is where we see ourselves being. And so we have to feel comfortable taking an inventory of the future today and then communicating that inventory to our children in honor of our elders and our ancestors. Because you can't get somewhere you've never been before if you don't know where you're going. And the first thing that we can leave to our youth is a directional map.
So to what he asked and then to what you said first, so are you saying that we're going to have a couple in-house meetings first together? What you're saying is that I'm just trying to make sure I'm following you right. Because like for me, I'm feeling just like him right now. My whole goal with the Head Start is, okay, man, what can I do to get, you know, so for example, when I'm saying the cookout or or some kind of basketball game or something, it's simply because if 100 people, 200 people who wouldn't show up to this or show up to a basketball game, then we got them. That's how I feel. You know, because before we shoot the ball, man, this is really why we came. You know what I'm saying? Or the vice versa. So I don't know, like from what I heard from you was we have to gather the intel that we want to push to the people. So I don't know, but my thought is, I'm good at getting everybody to the place, but it might not, I ain't trying to fool them either, but I just feel like, no, you eat, but you gotta listen. You know what I'm saying? Not gonna shoot the ball, but before you shoot it, you know what I'm saying? So I just think that's one thing I can do is, I can bring the people, but I don't have quite the intel or the knowledge, you know what I'm saying?
So I just wanted to share real quick. I'm Tiffany Peterson Felder, and I say that with all confidence. And people sometimes look at me like that's not honoring my husband, which is totally the opposite. Speaking to what you were just saying, I held on to the name Peterson because my father literally took me. He was courting my mother. She already had me. My father left when I was about 6 months old. I really don't even remember when it was. I have short memories of it. But I know that he was pretty absent. My dad, when he actually married my mom, I took on his name. He adopted me. And he's never let me go. He'll be 70 in a few weeks, and I'm the one planning the birthday party because we are tight. Like, we're just very tight. And I would never let him go now that he's in his later stages of life. I know I'll probably be part of the caregiving of him and such because it's just my brother and I. And so to what you were speaking, a name does mean so much, and it has actually helped me navigate through life because my cousins, a lot of them didn't even know that I wasn't even my dad's child until my grandfather died, and I actually said it because I was the one speaking at my grandfather's funeral, myself and his biological granddaughter. So it does mean to me that you took in a family at a young age that was not able to actually figure out their way because they didn't have their basic necessities. For me to draw people in and make a difference for them, like you said, feeding them, that's a basic necessity. I drove down here from Virginia and I was like fasting before I came because I didn't want to stop. I wanted to get here as fast as I could, trying to get to see the MLK choir who I have a history with. And I was like, man, I miss the choir, but that food smells good. Where is it? And I still haven't made it over there because I've been mingling and networking. But I'm just saying, if you meet a basic need, a lot of times that will draw people in. So for me, I know that just like I held on to my dad's name and it helped me navigate through life, I feel like if we give people their basic needs, they'll have an ear to actually listen. Yes, it could be a form of entertainment. It could be the basketball. It could be music. It could be the things that culturally we enjoy. But we got to actually take care of some business in our community first. So I feel you on the way that you're saying to do it, and I believe that that could work. And then from there, have the deeper discussions like my brother, insightful like none other. You weren't here to hear that I've actually been in financial services for 26 years. So you just definitely have my ear. So we need to talk because we can make some big things happen, I know, because we are going to need a lot of finances for where we're going. It's getting to a point now they're not going to keep helping us. They're not going to, it never was meant to help us anyway. The whole welfare system was not meant to have us have a come up. It was meant to hold us down and make us think that actually making a few $100s a month and being able to have housing where they tell you what you can do and what you can't do and they fix things when they get ready to was enough for us. So I'm tired of seeing it and I'm tired of watching it, and I've been in the neighborhoods enough to know I'm tired of following people that don't look like us to come in and actually sell us insurance. It costs too much and it isn't going to give you any type of generational wealth. It's literally just going to put your body in the ground, and then it makes a funeral home actually wealthy again. Nothing against funeral homes, but if it's not a business in the community that's not feeding back the community, then we do not support it, period. So we've got to figure out how to actually make our economics do like we say we should. Do like other cultures do, where it's going around and around and around. I have no problem spending $12 on an actual fish plate. I gave him 15 because I'm like, I know it's going somewhere where it's going to be beneficial to my community. And every purchase that we make should be with that sort of mentality. I was reading 2 days ago, that the gentleman who makes the third highest income earner in the world now is with a technology company. And what he's doing is going to be resting right here in North Carolina. And I'm looking at how many black people is he going to be hiring in the midst of what he's doing. But I bet you we're going to be one of his biggest consumers. Again, he took over Bezos' spot. How many of you guys order from Amazon just about every week? I know my husband does, and I get on him because I buy most of my stuff at expos and stuff like this. So I can see who's selling it to me. I can see what households it's coming from and where the money's going to. Because that's how I like my money to flow. I like it to flow where I know where the energy is actually being fed. And so when we're doing things, we got to make sure that we're taking care of our small business owners. We're supporting each other. And as fathers, I'm going to tell you, I was a single mom for years. And I used to boast on Father's Day because I was like, you know, my ex wasn't doing what he was supposed to be doing, so I was like, I guess I'm the mother and the father. Conceptually, I knew that was not true, but it was a way to help me hold on and actually keep going. But the best way I think a father can actually really make an impact in our community, number one, you all got to come together and be authentic. I heard somebody talking about authenticity when I came in here. I didn't even let my windows down on my car, and I heard the word authenticity. Let's be real. We have not done our youth right. A lot of us have gotten to come up and all we got is judgment on how they're actually handling things. And they're being exposed to stuff way more than what any of us ever had because of technology. They're being bombarded by people who don't know them, don't care about them, and have no idea what it means to be a black child in America. So until black men get in the room, start being authentic and really assess the problems, and this is my financial planner speaking out, you got to assess the problem and be real about it. Find the pain point. What makes you hurt? What makes you cry? Black man that you know you didn't have happen and you know you didn't do for the children in your life, and you see other children suffering from it as well, and it's just perpetuating itself. Faster and faster and faster. Be real about the problem. Once you figure out what the problem is, now let's look at some ways to create solutions. And all of you got enough gifting. Just sitting on this stage, I can feel the energy on this stage. I know that we have the energy, the smarts, and the laborers to do it. This man said that he was a nurse. I know you were laboring. I know you've done some things I probably would have never done. I studied medicine because I knew I couldn't be a nurse. I was like, I'm not touching them there. I'm not doing that. And then I became a doctor of people's finances because I said I ain't doing any of it because I don't believe in like prescription meds. I don't. I'm like anti that. But I just believe that we have enough knowledge in the black community to heal whatever ails us if we stuck together. So once you guys are willing to be real about the pain points, and then be able to really say, okay, what can I actually do to be the solution? And also be willing to actually engage with these young people consistently, because I'm telling you, whatever you do in person, they're being bombarded about 80% more through the technology that's in their hand all day, that's connected to their hand. So you gotta offset all of that. That's why I love TMT. I didn't even know that's what TMT stood for. This is my first interaction. But too much television, it should be too much television, too much technology in my mind is what they're being bombarded with. And they really need to have the flip side. Too much time with you all to turn it all around. Because my young men have grown up to be good young men because my dad interacting with them being part of like the junior Kappas. There's some men who actually stepped in their life, the pastors and the deacons at my church who actually picked them up and took them to the men's youth things when because I wasn't going to go. They needed to make sure they were around men. When I was a single mom, it was those men who wrapped their arms around them. The men that were in the choir, the Martin Luther King All Children's Choir, Mr. Randy, Mr. Rob that was here earlier, those were like their daddies when their dad wasn't around. So that's what's necessary. Hands on. And snatch the phone out their hand as much as possible while they're with you, unless you're taking a selfie.
Well, my story is knowing my father 55 years later. Like I said, I'm 60 years old now. And I met my father. I knew who he was, but I didn't know him. He lived in Oakland, California. And being a child, you see these TV shows where the parent comes home from the military and a kid just run to the parent at school, whatever, don't care about who's there, but being there and hugging that parent and don't want to let go. That's what I needed. 55 years I went through that. My dad would come and visit in Virginia, and he'll be as close as you are to me now. How you doing? You doing okay? No touch or anything. His wife sitting beside me just like you. She wouldn't let him do anything. My mother was on what they called welfare at the time. They call it social service now. But she was the kind of person who made it from one end of the month to the other end of the month. People would joke us all the time because she would go in the grocery store with 3 grocery carts and fill them up because she knew she didn't have another way to get food or anything the rest of the month. But she did what she had to do. What I learned being brought up by 3 women and be able to take care of yourself. Learn how to cook. Learn how to do your chores around the house and make it the best that you can. So if you decide not to get married, you will be in place to take care of yourself. If I remember being in college in those little hot plates, I was cooking my own chicken that late at night. I played football, so I was hungry all the time. But the one thing I do remember is these 3 ladies teaching me how to be a man. They didn't know how to be a man. They just knew what I needed to round me out. Okay? Like I said, I met my father 5 years ago. His wife died 2 weeks after that. He called me on the phone. We're having a family reunion. And he said to me, "Are you going to the family reunion?" I said, "I don't know." It was in Greensboro. And I said, "I don't know if I'm going or not because I've never been to one before." He said, "Okay." He called me the next day and said, "You know, I'm in Phoenix, Arizona." I said, "Okay." He said, I said, "So where you going?" He said, "I'm going to North Carolina." I said, "Okay, where you going to North Carolina?" He said, "That place they call Raleigh, Durham." He thinks it's one place. So I said, "Okay." I said, "Who you staying with?" He said, "I'm staying with you." I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "I'm coming to stay with you." Well, I'm Christian, of course. I had a prayer to give me strength. So the wife, I called her and told her, and she said, "Well, let me come home and prepare." So we got it together, and I can tell you this, when I remember my father, he's like 6'2", 6'3", broad man. You know, at the airport in Terminal 2, you can't just sit there. So I had to keep moving around. An hour later, hour and a half later, and I'm wondering, I see this figure coming at me, and I'm talking to him. He said, "I'm coming." He's not the man that I remember. He's older, and my dad is 84 now. He's older, and he can't move. He got a duffel bag on his back. He has a book bag on his back, and he has this walking, this walker, and he's pushing this thing because after you get outside the airport, they don't help you. So I had to drop all that and help him. But the one thing I can say, gentlemen, through the experience that I had with him, was that he had to sit there with me, and we had to talk. And excuse my expression, tears and snot, whatever you want to call it, had to come out. I had to let all that stuff go to introduce me to the new person. And it hurt a lot, but I'm over it. Matter of fact, Ernest and I took him to Jamaica 2 weeks ago, and we hung out and had fun for 8 days. I mean, my dad's my best friend. I can talk to him, and we can laugh and joke. You'd think we 2 little kids talking. What I see what we have to do as men is we got to let that shield down. There's some kids out here who need us. There's some young men who need you more than your kids do, like you said. And we got to accept them because society is changing them to what we don't want them to be. I have young men in my church, they blame it on COVID. It ain't COVID do it. They want to go the other side, if you know what I mean. And I refuse to let them do it. I have to put myself in places that I don't want to. But I'm not going to be a part of that group. We don't walk around an S on our chest like Superman, but we have hearts and we have emotions. If we can save one man, that one man can save another man, and that man can save another man. We are doing what we're supposed to do. It's not about wealth and fame and fortune to me. It's about who are you when nobody's around. Maybe I'm talking too much.
Can I interject real quick? I just want to say this. When we speak about, this aspect of manhood, and I'm glad that these sisters are on this panel as well, because these are the people that make us fathers. Without these black women, we are not fathers. So please give a round of applause to these black women. Another round of applause again for my sister, my mother, Muna. She made the call. When she made the call, there was no excuse, none. And I want you to know, Sister Muna, wherever you need me to be, you know I'm going to be there. Brother posed the question, and I think that it was a beautiful question in terms of where do we go from here? How do we move from speaking to doing? And you know, you and I had a conversation a little bit earlier about being genuine and being authentic. We have to begin to talk about asset building, because a lot of our institutions are underperformed and unattended to simply because of the fact that we don't necessarily patronize one another. I know you all are familiar with Chipotle, and a couple of years ago, there was a breakout of, I think it was E. coli, twice. And we still line up and get burritos. But if we feel slighted in any kind of way in our own businesses, man, I'm not returning there. And I'm gonna tell my friends not to go either. Do we or do we not do that? So we spoke about this I'm saying Brother Mims and I, we spoke about this psychological thing. I like the way Dr. Naeem Akbar put it. He said, a flea jumps 6 feet high, but if you take a glass that's 6 inches high and you flip it on top of that flea will bump its head and only jump 6 inches high. When you remove that glass and it has its offsprings, it will only jump 6 inches high. Psychologically, we have been messed up. So when we start speaking about why we are not doing the things that we should be doing, learning the things that we should be learning, it's simply because of the fact that we are psychologically damaged. And we know that we have to dig into some trauma. Right now, our young people today, I know when I was coming along, it wasn't no such thing as mental health. There was no such thing as mental health. Today, the mental health of our children is outrageous. Now, whether we speak to it in terms of social media, other aspects,
I want to jump in on that statement.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But what I want to say real quickly to that is what was yesterday is not today. It's a totally different situation altogether. My seatbelt was my mother throwing her arm across my front. Now today it's baby got to have helmet on, knee pads on just to get on a bike. Things have changed, and that's all I'm saying. And I'm not saying that we have to conform with the times, but we do have to understand that we're dealing with a totally different monster altogether.
I want to jump in on that statement that was made earlier. Wise words said that as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. I want that to sink in. I have 10 grandchildren. As a man thinks in his heart, so is he. When Kanye West came out after Kyrie or before Kyrie posted the Twitter creating a hornet's nest called Hebrews to Negroes, one of the things that Kanye said was the industry. Now let me give you a preface. I'm a son of one of the first black Navy SEALs. When my father got out of the SEALs unit, he was a comms guy. And then he left and became an expert in psychological warfare. This is the man that raised me. So when I hear people in our community talk about trauma, I hear Kanye West say, the industry is designed to monetize trauma talk. I want y'all to hear me, because this brother said something very powerful. Is the first thing we have to do is we have to release. And that's why I was talking about Sankofa. There are certain things in our past that have caused us pain, but no pain, no gain. You can't be on a sports team and be upset that you worked out and your body's sore because you haven't worked out in over a year. So you can't cry about it and say that my body is traumatized because I worked out. Because if I worked out more often, then my body wouldn't be so easily traumatized by the challenges that beset me. So the first thing we got to do is to put a nail in the coffin to the word trauma. Quite frankly, damn trauma. Because out of your heart, the man or the person speaks. And you're going to either speak to your good or you're going to speak to your bad. And I'm going to make this last statement. Men-wise, in a sacred book, it says, if you are lukewarm, I will spit you out of my mouth. I'm a prodigal son. I had my first apartment at 15 because I wouldn't follow my father's rules. And he told me it's my way or the highway. Okay? I left his house because I was making $800 a month in 1982. And he asked me to pay a $20 water bill. And I'm 6'2", and he's 5'10", always wanting to be 6 feet. You understand what I'm saying? And he said to me, hold on, wait a minute, son. This is the rules in my house. You know, as for me and my house, is what my father was saying to me. He said, in my house, you're going to take 50% of all the money you make, and you're going to put it in the bank, because you don't have no bills. The second thing my father asked me to do is take and pay a water bill of $20. And in my immaturity, I had a fit. I told him, it's your responsibility to take care of me. Daddy said, I was one of those soldiers that was so good at what I did, they pulled me out of high school and put me in a boot camp. And I got my high school diploma in the U.S. Navy. Okay? So when it says, do not be lukewarm, we are men. We are not eunuchs. A eunuch is a castrated male. And I see too many black men walking around as though they're missing their testicles. And I'm gonna keep it 100. If God put something in you, then be the Lion of Judah that God planned you to be. And take a page from Denzel Washington. Denzel Washington said, fall forward. Y'all never heard of it. Google it. Denzel Washington, fall forward. Michael Jordan said, I'm one of the #1 basketball players in the world. Why? He said, because I became a master of failing. That's why I'm so good. So we want to be good men? A, know that you're a man and you're not a eunuch. Have some intestinal fortitude. Right, wrong, or indifferent. It's going to be a stepping stone or a stumbling block. Either way, you're going to learn. You can't learn how to fire shooting with blanks, and ammo is not cheap. So don't get to be a 30-year-old man, a 40-year-old man, a 50-year-old man, an 80-year-old man, and act like you shooting blanks, because you're not going to get no respect from your women, and you daggone sure not going to get no respect from our young men and women who esteem to be like you. Like the brother was saying with the mosquito or the flea that can normally jump 6 feet, but when they put them in the glass and let them jump to 6 inches, and when they remove the glass, the flea can only jump 6 inches. That's like the black doll baby study and the white doll baby study. But if we teach our children, greater is he that's in you than he that is in the world. If we teach our children, be you not conformed to this world, but be you transformed by the renewing of your mind. If we teach our children through the Spirit, we can do all things. All things, it didn't say some things. And so we have to go back and take a Sankofa moment and remember the excellence that is around this table.
So this is my thing is from taking from the initial comment that you came with. So it seemed like to me, you know, especially with men, us, because if I look at who you say your father was, you know, a lot of people in the neighborhood either don't know their father. If it is another person step in, he ain't a good father. He there just for mama and late night activity. You know what I'm saying? Or if it's a OG, somebody they consider an aunt. You know what I'm saying? If depending on what we got going on, we might not be able to stem. So I think one thing what I'm hearing is, you know, like you said, if I take the approach of what can we do to get 100 men, 200 men to show up? Maybe it was 200 gas cars and a cookout. Whatever it was, you know what I'm saying? I'm kind of like him, sort of. I kind of feel the compassion so far of a few things. You know, hey man, we about to love up on you, brother, but we had to cut your head off first. You know what I'm saying? But we about, hey, come on in, man. We about to get you right. But hey, what you about to go through in the next 2 seconds, right after this hug, you know what I'm saying, is the guillotine. You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of what I'm pulling so far. Hey, how we get them? All right, man. It's some compassion and some love we got to show. But your head coming off in a couple seconds because we got to clean you. We got to. So that's what I'm taking so far. I just want to throw that in there. You know what I'm saying?
Can I say something? Back to your question, to kind of, assist with answering that question. One of the things we have to do is go into the hornet's nest. And so the hornet nest, and I have to use my life. There was a time, I remember being away from New York. And I went with my mother to New York. Now, at this particular time, I had probably been a nurse and in the military, away from New York, out of college, at least maybe 10 years. And we were in Queens, New York. And the thing about me when I was young, I did a lot of things I didn't let my mother know. I was her favorite, but I had a dirty side to me too, a sneaky side. In other words, I was doing a lot of things that she didn't know about. I was her best son, but she didn't know that I was doing some things, smoking cigarettes and drinking and stealing, organized stealing. But I knew the life growing up, had it not been for my mother making some decisions to move us out of Brooklyn to Long Island. I was on that pathway of snatching pocketbooks at 13 years old. Getting into those type of trouble. I had always been a numbers runner for my mother, a carrier. But one of the things that I had got away from was being black. And I remember riding with my mother going to the motor vehicle department. This was around about 86, somewhere in there. And we were going through this area that they call, and I'm going to, it had the N word, but I'm going to say called Color Town. And this was during the height of the crack era. And I had an Audi Fox. I really felt like I was successful. And my mother was riding, and she always, Junior, come on, go with me. So we're riding to this area. My mother says, if you want anything, you can get it here. People were lined up on the streets. They were doing whatever they do. But the media had already had my mind brainwashed. And I had forgot how to live in that environment. And we pulled up to a light, maybe 3 cars back. And when we stopped, I hit the lock. What did I do? I might as well have just took a bottle and threw it out the window. Everybody that was in that immediate area looked around. And my mother asked me, what are you doing? Why did you do that? And I said, well, I was just trying to make sure we were safe. And this is how you've got to really keep your, when I say going into the hornet's nest. We drove on. We got to the motor vehicle place, and then we're parking my car. we get out the car, and I see a bunch of guys who I just think they're up to no good. They're black, probably my age. So we walk out, getting ready to cross the street, and my mother says, Junior, I forgot my pocketbook. Can you go back and get it? I'm like, well, Mama, can you come back with me? Now, I'm 26 years old, somewhere in there. I'm supposed to be protecting my mother, and I'm asking her to come back with me to the car. And when we walk back and we see those same guys, they're in the garage sweeping. They're cleaning the garage. My perception was they were black and they were up to no good. And what happened next to me was a few years later, 92, I got divorced. And in that divorce, I lost just about everything except for my car, clothes, and everything. This is about the time that I met my best friend. But what God did for me is put me smack back in the ghetto. And when I say ghetto, there were drug dealers, there was prostitutes, everything. I couldn't afford anything expensive because I was paying most of everything I had as a registered nurse, making at least $1,100 a week. All of my money was going to child support and back taxes. And when they come for your money, they come in penalty and interest. And they want it all. But anyway, I found myself in a situation where when I would ride, I was on a motorcycle. I didn't even have a car. I was on a motorcycle, and the little kids would see me riding on a motorcycle with my scrubs. And they would say, "Are you a doctor?" I said, "No, I'm a nurse." And I'm like, "You can't be a nurse. There's no way. Men are not nurses." I said, "No, I am a nurse. I'm a registered nurse." But one of the things that I noticed, they started comparing. They were looking at successful drug dealers in their big cars, and they were looking at me. They would come to me, I would talk to them, and I realized, and I used to have this thing on my stove that said, "Due to the current financial restraints, the lights at the end of the tunnel will no longer be on." And I had it up there because God was trying to let me know that you've been living a life where you've forgotten who you were and where you come from. So what I mean by going into the hornet's nest, I had to live in that area and really figure out who my people were. We are people who are successful at thriving. We're entrepreneurs. We are very brilliant, extremely brilliant at what we are given and what we have to deal with. We are successful at it. I go often, at least every 3 to 4 months, I'm in Jamaica, in Kingston. And I was told if you go to Kingston, beware. But what I've learned is that we here in the States have not come too far from where they are at right now. And it seems like yesterday when there were outdoor toilets that I was using. When I would go to my grandmother's house, we had piss pots. I don't know if y'all know what a piss pot is. It's a white or a blue basin that has a red or a blue stripe around it. But the women could use the outhouse. We had to go out into the woods. But what I'm saying is, when my direction and my path took me back to the hood, is when I began to realize who I was again, that I was a black man. And I began to learn who my people were again. I realized where I came from, and that my connection with them, that I was supposed to be a beacon for those young men. So I found out that anytime that I've wanted to know someone that were in the ghetto, or someone who I thought was who we would look at and turn out and walk away or walk across the street, I actually go and introduce myself. So I think a lot of things you have to do, you've got to go to them. You can't expect them to come to you. Not at all. At all. You've got to go to them. And when they see that you are sincere, that you're going to them, coming to them. And many times people ask, you're an RN? Yeah, I'm an RN. A registered nurse? Yes. I put my hands inside hearts and work with hearts. I've fixed vessels. I've measured the diameter, the pressures, and everything that has to do with a heart. I've stood by doctors who respect me. Even to this day, there are patients who remember me. But the thing that I've left a lasting impression is in the ghetto and in the hood in Durham. Because I continue to go back and I continue to be the person where I'm supposed to be. I'm a person, my gift is to mend broken hearts and broken relationships. It's to bring people together. I'm that mender, I'm that glue, and that is my calling. But I can't do my calling from a distance. I can't do it from behind the computer screen. I've got to be able to make that connection. I do that with my sons-in-law. Well, my son-in-law was out there. But yes. I talk to him like he is my son. His father passed a while back. My other son, my other son-in-law lives in Ohio. He's not with my daughter, but I sit and I talk with them because it is very important as a father that you realize what does it mean to be a father-in-law. That title tells you what you are supposed to be. In the absence of their father, you are their father. It has nothing to do with blood. So in the absence of those young men who are in those areas that are poverty, you've got to be their father. For my nephews, I have a nephew, and if we don't reach out and help them, they won't succeed. I have a nephew right now, very successful in Florida. He's about 24 years old, but he was in jail when he was 19. He doesn't even get along with his father, my brother. But I kept contact with him. When he needed money, I would send him money. If he asked me to do something that was wrong, I spoke to him. I gave him books to read and talk to him. He is very successful right now. He has not returned back to the system.
I was gonna say this, brother. We short on time. I probably got 5 minutes now. But one thing I was gonna say is I don't know how initiative starts, but I just was sitting here and I asked Ms. Muna, when you get back in town, if we can pin this, whether it's the ones who can't show up, we got the computer, we got the big enough screen where they can chime in. But I think this is where we can start it at. I think we got the right components. And I'm going to let you speak too, bro. I'm going to let you close this out and let somebody else. But I do want to say this in closing. Now, I would love, if it ain't nothing but this circle right here, to convene again, man, because and I think it needs to be a Raleigh-Durham artist. So for a long time, my angle has been to push Raleigh-Durham. No, it's Raleigh-Durham, bro. It's us. We together. Even, and there are some hoods that even have tried, before. So I do think it should be a Raleigh-Durham thing. I do think the more we know, the better we can pull it off. I do believe we need to have some sister men involved, but I know due to the time of day, I definitely, and a person like Mr. Warren and his brother here with Fathers Forever as well, but I just, for me, I know that it's a group. I think we can get to these young brothers. I think once we do, man, that's an atmosphere shift right there. Because even me, a person who can be around and can talk a little bit and know some few people, I just think about when I ride back through my neighborhood, but they don't know these people. But they don't, and then and I talk to them sometimes, but not from what I'm hearing right now, you know what I'm saying? I can get them there. Somebody said, man, I can get one fly, but you seem to can get a lot of flies, you know what I'm saying? So in my mind frame, I just know that one thing, if this conversation should continue, possibly with this group and maybe a couple others, but I'm content with what I see, you know what I'm saying? Because I know we all know somebody else. But if we can pin this, if we can pin this, man, I would love to revisit.
We have a group that does actually come together in the evening. I'm gonna tell you, it brings women to tears. We stay silent. It's on Zoom, because that's, even though it's, I know you said you want to be hands-on, and I get it, but there's people across the country that could use all of you and every gift that you've got. You're young enough, but you're old enough that people could hear you. You definitely, your wisdom, I know a lot of the analyticals like me will be rolling their window down just like I did when I heard you speaking. You know, and brother, your experience in medicine and your love as far as your ministry is concerned. All of you have different elements, and your rawness, you already know you're going to attract a bunch of people because that's what you do. But it's on Zoom, but it's at 9 o'clock, and it's Superman Saturday. And we literally call Superman Saturday. We have a theme every night with the business, but technically my business is my ministry. Financial services is really my ministry. I teach people how to actually create wealth, because I feel like we're meant to be prosperous, because my favorite scripture is, beloved, above all things, I would have you to be in good health and to prosper as your soul prospers. So I do not believe in us living in lack, period. But a lot of times us not living in lack might mean that we have to join together and give to somebody else who might not have right now, and then teach one, reach one and teach one until they can come along and actually get what they need. So, but when there's a group of men that meets at 9 o'clock Eastern on Saturdays, they get together and they have this, they do affirmations, they actually speak to each other, they talk about what they need to do in the community, they're putting boots on the ground, they are already established, they are nationwide, but to be able to see my second hometown, which I call Raleigh-Durham my second hometown because I was here more of my life than I was in Michigan, I believe it would just be astronomical what you all would be able to do. Because now you got people who are in financial things that would be able to back what you're up to. They would be willing to actually, you guys come together and start putting some initiatives in place. Start feeding some kids, start taking them out, start doing some things. We don't need the big brothers and big sisters. We got Miss Mona. She had already put it together for you guys and catapulted. Now it's just like, go forward, my men. Go forward, my kings, and do what you know how to do. So I will give you the information for it. It's real simple. It's just live.rbequest.com. I literally am, I'm the CEO of the company. However, I'm the CEO of the company. However, my business partner is a male, and he's a pastor, a minister. And he loves the Lord more than he loves the business, because we feel like it's our ministry. I'm serious. But our whole initiative is that we teach generational wealth. But you can't teach generational wealth if people, again, don't have their necessities met.
Listen, you can't teach the love and compassion. Like these ones that we get on.
That's what I'm saying.
We can't even teach.
Right.
We got to go to them. We got to get them to even teach. Because I don't think they know. Like there's some hard brothers that got compassion, but you won't see it at a funeral or when they home. But they got it. You know what I'm saying? They just don't know how to. You're supposed to have the same compassion for that brother as you do for this one.
Come on, why do you think young men join gangs? Because they know, they like, my brother got my back. He got me through everything, through the good and the bad. That's how they talk. And I'm gonna tell you, when I first moved to North Carolina, the first neighborhood they stuck me in was Durham to actually work the insurance. And they were like, and they sent me there intentionally thinking I would fail. The problem was they didn't know that I'm a product of Michigan, Detroit, Saginaw, 3 of the top crime capitals of the nation. So when I go to a project in Durham, I'm thinking it's a normal neighborhood. I'm like, they're just apartments that are next to each other. There's a bunch of townhouses. I'm going door to door, meeting people. Y'all say, come on in. They actually give me collard greens and corn and cornbread when I'm doing insurance. And when I got back to the hotel and everybody else had pizza, they're like, you want a piece of pizza? No, I ate like 3 dinners. And I made about $2,000 today. I'm not hungry, I'm tired. I want to go to bed and go do it again tomorrow. And they all these older Caucasian men, because back when I first started, that's all there were in the room. They're looking at me like, what are you talking about? And they were like, where is she working? And I said, Durham. I don't know anything about Durham. Come to find out by the end of the week that they had set me up, thought I was going to fail. Raleigh, Durham is 2 of my favorite places in the world, and I've traveled all over the world. The reason why, because there's real homegrown people, but there's a lot of people with a lot of talents, and they're willing to collaborate. Especially like Durham, I love how they do the community gardens and all the stuff they do. Raleigh, the old money, and they found a way to tap into it finally in a lot of ways. So yeah, Raleigh-Durham's a perfect place to meet up with these men. And if you do it tonight, I'm telling you, y'all can springboard a lot of things here and give me another reason to drive back from Virginia and see what you're doing.
Anybody want to leave on
close out. I'll let anybody close out. We got a couple more speakers coming. I appreciate y'all coming up here, man.
And I would just like to conclude with this. The Bible says in the book of Ecclesiastes, my brother was going biblically, we need to walk in truth. And as my sister here said, authenticity. What is authenticity? We've got to go back to our true roots of who we really are. Until we go back to our true roots, nothing's going to change. Names, if you call them, you can say you can call them any name. That is not so. You got to go back to your true roots. The Bible says in conclusion of the whole matter, fear Elohim and keep his commands. 2 Chronicles 7:14 says, if my people, which are called by my name, or what is my name? And I know it's going to offend a lot of people. My name is Yeshua HaMashiach. And a lot of people now, I know a lot of people is going to frown up with that. That's his Hebrew name. We're worshiping on Sundays. We know where the Sundays come from. It goes right back to the Roman Catholic Church. If my people which are called by my name would humble yourselves and pray, seek my face and turn from your wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and I will forgive you of all your sins and heal your land. In these communities, it's not a color, it's not political. Ephesians 6:10 said, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. Our battle is with demonic entities called principalities, rulers of the darkness, spiritual wickedness in high places, and the powers. Once we go back up on our original roots of who we really are and go back to the holy days instead of a holiday, worshiping an Easter egg and an Easter bunny, we go back to our original roots, you can see yokes broken. You can see all this going. Things will happen for you that you can least expect. Let's close out in prayer, please. Heavenly Father, we come before you today to say thank you for this panel today. Thank you for the unity, the camaraderie, the reportness, the wisdom that you have given us this day. Father, we ask you to continue to lead, guide, never leave us, never forsake us. Father, we say thank you. Father, most of all, give us truth. John 8:32. That truth that we know is what's going to liberate and set us free. For whom the Son is set free is truly free indeed. Thank you for setting us free mentally, physically, financially. Father, the wealth of the sinner has been laid up for the just. Release that wealth to your people, Father, and that you get the glory through our lives and everything that we do this day forth and forevermore. And we all said amen, amen, and amen. Thank y'all for your time. God bless you.
Coming right up. Yes, sir. You got this. Love you, man. Love you. Have a great day. I know I ain't gonna know the truth.
My oldest one is 24. 14.
Oh my God. 24 down to 14. We got fathers in this house. We got black fathers. I'm so thankful. Okay, God.
We need some batteries.
So he was my best friend. So he comes over to the house and explains how about I'm up in the I knew his best friend was different than you. Okay. He had been to that house. That's how God worked with us. Thank you all so much for participating. This is on film. We're going to be watching this. We're going to spread this in our community. Come on.
Bring back the bells.
Yeah, we are.